We are back, talking hoops at Nedick's. A little shortcut to our title of our show. I'm Ralph Tycho. My co-hosts are author Hal Bock and maven Alan Blumkin. Gentlemen. Hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
All right. How about? And how are you, Mr. Maven? Has the weather let up in New York a little bit, guys?
Well, they predicted some snow here, but it's just a dusting and
maybe it's a dusting where you are, but I had to shovel my driveway today.
Where are you?
I'm on the island.
Yeah. I saw
so we got enough
on the newscast there. Yeah.
Enough to shovel it. Well, in the immortal words of Wayne Unger, who's a native New Yorker, and it's his last year. He's about to become semi-retired and move to Jacksonville, and it's Florida. And I'm a New Yorker who was born and raised and left New York to come out to California to join the Air Force and never really went back to live, weather being a big part of it when I was a kid. And he said the other day, I said, "How are things, Wayne?" I said, "Okay this winter." And he goes, "Oh, today's a good day. It got over 30. And, I don't bother. I don't worry about it. If it's over 30, it's okay. But when it's under 30, it gets a little uncomfortable." So native New Yorkers are a special kind of tough.
Well, we're coming up to February. It's the shortest month, so
yeah,
maybe we'll get a break.
Right, and I think it's like 59 days now till opening day in baseball. So one can hope it goes fast. Some Februaries are very, very nice in New York, I remember. And others, wow, it could go into March. So wish you guys the best. Let's talk a little high school New York City basketball. From way back. Where did you go to high school? I'll start with you, Alan Blumkin.
I went to Martin Van Buren High School in Queens.
Okay, that's in Queens.
Yeah.
And you played in, Martin Van Buren played in the PAL League.
PSAL.
That was, no?
PSAL, Pacific.
PSAL. Yes, I remember that.
When I was a senior,
they played Newtown and Flushing. And
when I was a senior, they actually got into the Final Four at the Garden, and they wound up getting beaten in the semis by Columbus, which was, as I remained in the Bronx, I would have wound up going to Columbus. But then they lost the consolation game to Wingate with Roger Brown, and then Columbus played boys with Connie Hawkins, and boys beat them 21-15. Clinton.
Okay.
Sorry.
You picked
the ball for most of the game.
You picked two of the greatest New York City basketball players that ever lived.
And they
most people know the story about Connie Hawkins. Not to use the show as a bibliography or have a bibliography that's formal, but there was a book. I don't know if you guys remember the book Foul.
Oh, yeah, I have that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Terrific book about the time, the times. And Alan and I, when we first started, the week before you joined us, Hal, we talked about the basketball scandals in the 50s. We didn't get into the one in the 60s, but the one in the 60s involved two New York City basketball players. One of them, the aforementioned Roger Brown of Wingate, and the other one, Connie Hawkins. I just wanted, because I know I'll forget if I don't mention it now, the Columbus, the team that Wingate was beaten by that year, a few years later, they played Kareem in a game that I saw at the Garden, in Kareem's senior year for the city champions, he played with Power Memorial. I think Power Memorial was in New York. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Guys?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in Manhattan.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I didn't remember if it was in Brooklyn or in Bronx, but
it was in Manhattan.
Manhattan, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great school, Catholic school that recruited, obviously players recruited, and Kareem back then was Lewis Alcindor.
Yeah.
But let's talk about
from me. When I lived in Queens, a guy across the street from me went there.
Went to Power.
Went to Power, yeah. He would commute to Manhattan every day, yeah.
That's a hell of a schlep.
Yeah.
From Queens. My brother went to Bronx. Oh, my God. It wasn't Bronx Science. It was Brooklyn. It was the one in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn
Three
Tech?
schools you had to get in. Stuyvesant,
Brooklyn Tech,
and
Stuyvesant is in Manhattan.
Right, but there are three schools you had to take a test to get in.
Yeah,
Music and Art, Stuyvesant, and Bronx Science. My wife went to Bronx Science.
Oh, really?
She's the smart part of this family.
Yeah, I know a number of people from my job that wound up going to Stuyvesant, or from Stuyvesant.
Yeah, definitely the smart people. I went to Newtown. Those three schools you had to take a test to get into.
Yeah,
Newtown, you didn't even have to take a test to get out of.
There's a Chinese way.
It was a somewhat different brand of education in those days. But, and I didn't take advantage.
Who had a daughter that graduated when I was working there, her daughter graduated Stuyvesant and then went to Wellesley, which is one of the top women's schools in the country.
Yeah, well, good schools.
Yeah.
I was a Bronx kid. I went to James Monroe.
That's where my mother went. My mother went there.
Were you up near anybody up near Valentine Avenue in the Bronx?
No.
Yeah, I think that was that neighborhood. Yeah.
I was in Palm Parkway and the White Plains Road. My mother graduated Monroe in 1933. She was 5 years behind Hank Greenberg.
Oh, wow.
That's Greenberg and Ed Kranepool.
Yeah.
Yes, which is a story within itself for the New York Mets that helped keep their image going. And I have to, when you mention Monroe, or Kranepool, he was such a prospect out of James Monroe. What with Greenberg's reputation, they signed him. He was a heavy-legged first baseman who didn't really seem to be too inspired, even as a young kid. I remember he sassed, it was Duke Snyder, who was with them right at the end of his career with the Mets, and he just wasn't very good and stayed his welcome, outstayed his welcome.
17 years. And
yeah, I know. 17 years with one team. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and somebody brought a sign at one of the games. I think he was either 18 or 19 years old, and somebody brought a made-up sign. They flashed in the polo grounds. It says, "Is Ed Kranepool over the hill?"
That was what I was referring to.
Yeah.
That was a classic.
That's in a lot of
He
books on the first couple of Met teams.
Yeah. Not an original Met, but he came up in '62 too as well. But I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to let you guys talk about the Connie Hawkins and Roger Brown rivalry. This was right after Lenny Wilkins left Boys High, and I think Tommy Davis played.
Yeah, Tommy Davis
them.
went there. Yeah.
Billy Cunningham at Erasmus Hall.
Yeah.
My camp director was a fellow by the name of Bernie Sanders, Bernie Kersner, and Bernie was the coach of that Erasmus Hall team that won like 7 championships. And the year that they won, when Billy Cunningham was at Erasmus, the year they won the city championship with him there, he wasn't. He was there's something he was having trouble matriculating. He went from a Catholic school to Erasmus, or either that or he was hurt for the last half of the season. But the year they won it all, Billy Cunningham, what would they call him? Jumping Jack Kangaroo?
The Kangaroo Kid.
The Kangaroo
Kid.
Yeah.
They used to say there was kind of a non-politically correct statement that a ball player would play like a white kid or play like a black kid. Sometimes there was a black guy that played like a white kid, and sometimes there was a white kid that played like a black kid. Billy Cunningham played like a black. He was literally a jumping jack. He was the.
Do you guys remember a center named Billy Burwell?
Yeah, he played with Hawkins.
Yes, he did. That's right.
He was on the team with the boys' high team with
Connie Hawkins. Yeah. You know who else I thought of when we were discussing, when I was thinking about this subject today? The Catholic League, CHSAA, had some terrific players as well.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, that's where Power Memorial was, and that's where Lou Alcindor was. Following Lou Alcindor at Power Memorial, they had another very tall, lanky kid who also wore number 33, and his name was Waverly Davis.
Oh, yeah.
He would come out with a lemon in his mouth.
Yeah.
And I remember covering a CHSAA championship up at Fordham University in the Rose Hill gym. And, boy, he lit that place up. And, he played with a lemon in his mouth. I never saw anything like that before. But he was a terrific player. Went on to Seattle University.
Where Elgin Bailey came from.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Seattle was also the home of the O'Brien twins.
Yes.
Johnny and Eddie.
Johnny and Eddie, right?
Who went to the Pirates, and anytime somebody put a picture of them up on Facebook, I said, my comment is they should have stuck to basketball.
Right. One of them was involved in amateur sports after he left baseball or coaching.
Yeah, Eddie died 2 years ago. Johnny is still around. I think there's something like 84 years old. He's something like 84 years old.
First time in Topps baseball history, they had two brothers or players of any kind, on the same issued baseball card.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool, but both of them were not great ball players by any means. But
the King brothers,
anybody makes the throws, anybody.
The King brothers, Bernard and Albert King.
Bernard is easily one of the top 10 players to come out of New York City high school basketball history. Just terrific ball player, terrific pro, revolutionized the small forward
until he blew his knee out. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about Lou Alcindor or Kareem, who was a 7-foot kid. I want to bring up a guy who was not 7 foot, might not even have been 6 feet. Tiny Archibald. Nate Archibald. You remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was the Muggsy Bogues of his time.
That's right. Terrific point guard.
They had a Nassau Coliseum, I think it was sometime in the early 70s. They had an NBA, ABA All-Star game out in Nassau Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went there with a few friends, and I see all these guys warming up, and I see this kid who looks like he's 14 years old. He's making shot after shot. I said, who the hell is he? Somebody said, that's Nate Archibald. I said, what? He looked like he was a kid.
Yeah.
Then he played the game, and you realize why he was out there.
Oh, he was very quick. And again, he and Bose and those guys, they were literally, Bose was like 5'5". I think Tiny was a little taller than that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
A couple of the real early NBA greats that came out of their Dolph Shays came out.
Yep.
And Bob Cousy played Andrew Jackson.
That's right. That's right.
But he was kind of a Rockaway or Cousy. Was that it? And
yeah,
of course, the Browns.
Queens, yeah. He was near Rockaway. He went to Holy Cross.
Point guards from the next, not the Browns, the McGuires.
Yeah.
Al McGuire and Dick McGuire
came out of New York.
They were from the Rockaways. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Shays went to Clinton. I'm not sure, but I think he went to Clinton. Dolph Shays.
Where did he go to
school? Clinton and NYU.
Yes, but where did he go to high school?
He went Clinton.
With Clinton.
He did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from Whit Clinton, he went to NYU, and he should have been playing for the Knicks, but he wound up playing for the Syracuse Nats.
Over $2,000.
We talked about that last week. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
but I think Hal mentioned in passing that's a lot of money in those days too.
In those days, you bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference.
Boys and Clinton were always powerhouses in the PSL.
Right.
Yep. That's right.
You mentioned didn't Clinton have Willie Worsley at one time?
Yes, that's right. Another point guard.
And Jerry Hawkins came out of there also.
Oh, Jerry Loyola of Chicago.
And Ron Miller, who was on the Columbus team that beat Van Buren, he was a starter in that Loyola 5 also.
Oh, okay. That Loyola 5 team came in to the Garden for a holiday festival once, or the NITs or whatever it was. But I got to watch Jerry Hawkins, and I remember I used to score games at that time, and I remember. Now I do remember Miller, or was it Miller or Martin?
Miller, Ron Miller.
Ron Miller, yeah, that's right.
Okay, if I'd probably recognize because I scored those games, and when you write something down, that's why kids should score games. When you write it down, it really enhances your memory, unless you have a photographic memory like Alan Blumkin.
Oh, I scored games for years, and the one that broke me was that 25-inning Met Cardinal game in September.
I was there. I covered it.
I was there for the first 8 innings.
I was there for all 25, pal.
Wow.
I had to work that next day.
I can even tell you the date. It was September 11th, 1974.
September 12th, yeah. And,
right?
Wow. How did you remember that date?
Well, it happened to be my father's birthday also.
My father was born September 11th, 1911.
My father was 05, September 11th, 1905.
Mine was December 23, 1912.
Yeah, my dad was not a young guy.
In those days, you mentioned that 25-inning game. Today, they start the games at 7 o'clock, which I think is terrific. In those days, they started the game at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how late that game went.
It ended an hour later
to start with.
It ended a quarter after 3 in the morning, and I watched it on TV through the 7th inning before I gave up, and they would show Kiner sleeping in where he did the Kiner's Corner show.
Alan, do you remember how the game wound up going to extra innings?
Ken reached a two-out home run at the top of the ninth.
2-out home run off Jerry Koosman.
Yeah.
It was.
That's right. I was in my friend's car when that happened. We left because it was 3-1, and the Mets had
all the people in the press box are standing up, ready to go down to the dressing room.
Yeah.
2 out. It's a 3-1 game, and Koosman is cruising, and all of a sudden it's 3-3. And I don't know why we're talking about this. We're supposed to be talking about basketball, but I got to tell you this story.
No, we talk about wherever the conversation goes. Keep going.
In the 25th inning, Willie McGee gets on first base for the Cardinals. And the Mets had a relief pitcher, a left-handed relief pitcher, Hank something or other. I forget his last name. Hank Webb, was it? All right.
Oh, God, are you guys great.
He tries to pick off Willie McGee. and he throws the ball past the first baseman into right field. Now, McGee takes off. Everybody in the press box where you're not supposed to cheer starts yelling, "Run, run, Willie, run," because we wanted him to score a run, and maybe we'd get to
the hell
go
out
home.
of there.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. I'll never forget that night. Boy, that was something.
Okay.
And he did. He scored from first base on a wild pickoff.
Let me digress.
A Sabre meeting in Providence years ago, they had a guest as a guy who was the official scorer of that 33-inning game that they had between Providence and Rochester.
Right.
And he said there were a number of ball players that called home, and some of the wives didn't believe that they were still at the ballpark. It ended around 4 in the morning, and because nobody was in charge for calling the game. And they resumed it a couple months later, and it took 1 inning for one of the teams to score and get the game over with.
Okay.
I walked in my house after the 25-inning game. I walked in my house. It was about 5:15 in the morning, and my wife looked at me like, "Where have you been?" And I said, "You'll never believe the story."
Yeah, show with a box score.
It was true.
It went forever. 7 hours.
Yeah, and these are the days when people didn't have cell phones. Just pick up. I'm a little late.
No, there was none of that technology.
Oh. None of that. It goes back to what we talked about, the pay phones at Nedick's.
That's right.
Okay.
Those were all he used to call in bets.
Okay, before we get, I do want to keep it somewhat on track. Before we get to Connie Hawkins and Roger Brown, who were really the talk of New York at that particular time, because it was a few years before Kareem, and they were both individually and team-wise just terrific. I want to mention that Erasmus Hall and Bernie Kersner had another one of my camp mates as a point guard. I wonder if you guys remember Alan Fishman with Erasmus.
No, I don't remember that name.
Okay. Anyway, he was a terrific point guard. Went on to Brown, which another one of those Ivy League schools, and later played a little professional ball in Israel, if I remember correctly, and I think I do.
When you said Alan, I thought you were going to mention Alan Seiden.
Yeah.
Boy, another one of the Alan Seiden was a campmates from St. John's. And St. John's, I knew him from a Kittatinny campmate, a friend of his, a guy named Paul Granoff. And Alan Seiden was like first or second team All-America in 59 or 60, 58 maybe. He was terrific. He led that St. John's team. Point guards, I'll tell you what, big men and point guards, that's what basketball's about. As far as I can, no team ever wins without a good point guard. So made mention of him, and we kind of underscored Dolph Shays coming out and Bob Cousy. How good were they in high school, guys?
Before my time.
The same for me. It's before my time. But they had to be very good because they were recruited to major schools. NYU at that time played major college basketball, and so
Holy Cross
did Holy Cross.
Won the NCAA in 1947.
Yeah.
So
they had to be awfully good.
Yeah.
That's a feather in the cap of New York City basketball. And which one of you guys has any distinct memories of the Connie Hawkins, Roger Brown years? And let's talk about those two.
Oh, yeah, Connie Hawkins.
And the scandals.
Connie Hawkins had hands like you wouldn't believe. It was like the basketball in his hand looked like it was a grapefruit.
Alan, you would remember this, and I've got it in the back of my mind, but I can't. Connie Hawkins played a game in Madison Square Garden. Was it against Roger Brown? Was that the showdown in the Garden?
That was the other semifinal. Van Buren played Columbus, and that was the first game. The second game, which we of course all stayed for, was Wingate and Boys High.
Yeah.
And Boys High did a number on them because Roger Brown really didn't have too much support. But boys they were just unbelievable, that team. And
did they both go to Iowa?
Tommy Davis played for them, and Lenny Wilkins played for Boys High. Was Lenny Wilkins there at that time?
No. No, Lenny Wilkins was in Providence at that point.
Okay. Another powerhouse, Jack Egan.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, there were two Jack Egans played at the same time.
One
in Boston College.
Well, the Knicks had, they shipped to the Bullets when they got Earl Monroe. They shipped him.
Oh, is that right?
No, I'm sorry, not Earl Monroe. They shipped, I think when they got Bellamy, they shipped him. He was part of that trade when they got Bellamy from them.
That's right. Egan was a Knick.
Yeah.
God,
was Calvin Murphy a New York kid?
Guys who sucked over those years.
Was Calvin Murphy a New York kid?
I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know.
I thought he might be.
I can't answer that either.
But Egan was sent with Jim Bad News Barnes and some third guy to the Bullets for Bellamy.
I'll tell you this.
Okay.
Some of the best basketball you could ever want to see was played, and I would see it every night because, as I said, I went to New York University, and I drove past the West 4th Street playgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
And, my God.
Yeah.
That was
in the village.
Really cutthroat basketball. Yeah. I assume it's still going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a small little court, too.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. It's a mapped out of a court, but boy, they tear it up down there, I'll tell you.
I remember the late Anthony Mason, the ex-Knick, he played there quite frequently. And then they had the Rucker up, and
right, that's right.
And
they still do.
These schoolyard basketball. The only thing I ever saw, I wouldn't go up there, but I saw it on when they used to put on delayed telecasts.
Yeah, Wilt played there. I remember
they all played there. They all played
Kareem playing Wilt when.
Yeah, a lot of NBA players played there. That's true.
Yep. 4th Street and what is it? 7th Avenue?
No, 6th Avenue.
6th Avenue.
6th Avenue. They call it the Avenue of Americas, which nobody ever called.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That was. The photographers will snap you.
Yeah,
and you'll find that you're in the rotogravure.
Rotogravure. That's right.
Which is a section in the old newspapers of sepia pictures, because that's as far as the cameras could go back then. But they renamed, I think, after World War II, the 6th Avenue of Americas, and nobody I know, especially Dave New York, has ever called it that.
Right. You could always tell a tourist, do you know how Avenue of the Americans are?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, Roger Brown. What's his story?
Roger Brown, what happened to both of them is, of course, they were getting all sorts of college offers. And they both lasted maybe half a year. I think, I know Connie Hawkins was at Iowa.
Yeah. Did Brown go to Iowa as well?
Brown, I think, was somewhere else. I'm not sure. But
if he ever went to college.
Supposedly they were taking all sorts of stuff under the table to go to the colleges. And it turned out what happened with Connie Hawkins, he left from college, he played in this league called the American Basketball League, which George Steinbrenner was an owner in that league.
Cleveland Pipers.
Yeah, at least a year and a half. And they used to broadcast the games in Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh had a team called the Wrens. That's who Connie Hawkins played for. And after that league folded up, I think he may have done a little stint with the Globetrotters because the NBA wouldn't take him or Roger Brown because of the, what they perceived was scandalous.
Hey, I don't want to link to my book necessarily, but would you call that banned?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And Hal Bock has a new book coming out, and I urged him before we got on air to tell us about it. Good place to tell us about it, Hal.
Well, the name of my book is a baseball book.
Back. You had a hit book, a bestseller book. You timed it with the Cubs winning, Cubs Dynasty, and you're a prolific guy. How many books?
I do the best I can. This book is called Banned, Baseball's Blacklist of All-Stars and Also-Rans. And it talks about players and umpire, front office people who have been banned from the game. Now, everybody knows about the Black Sox, 1919 Black Sox, who fixed the World Series. But there are a bunch of others, very interesting stories. And the book comes out February 22nd, and it's available for pre-order at Amazon right now. So if you go to the Amazon website, you can read a little bit about it. And it was a fun book to write and research. And I'm looking forward to having it.
Discuss that pitcher, I think his name was Ray Fisher, who quit because he didn't like the salary he was being offered and went and coached.
You already read the book?
For 100 years.
Did you already read the book?
No.
How did you know that story?
This stuff comes up.
Well, he's in the book, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Well, that was impressive.
Things
come up out of Alan's head all the time that you go, he's unbelievable.
Phil Douglas, Shuffling Phil Douglas.
Yeah, he's in the book.
Yeah, and Jimmy O'Connell and Cozy Dolan.
Oh, my God, this man is you're unbelievable. You don't have to read the book. It's all there, you know?
Oh, because it's something I think I can get some new information from. So I'll get it as soon as it hits.
All that stuff is in the book, and that's why I enjoyed writing it, because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I found out, and that's the joy of writing a book like this. You learn stuff, you know, and it was a lot of fun to write this book.
How far back?
It's the research that
goes into the 1880s.
You go back to the 1887 Providence, Louisville.
Louisville, yes, it does. Talks about that team as well.
And I used to be friends with when I was really active in Sabre with a man named Harry Hyam, who was the grandson of Dick Hyam, who was the umpire that was kicked out for.
He's in the book too.
And Harry always claimed that his ancestor was not guilty.
Well, there's evidence that he was. There's substantial evidence that he was. But you'll read the book. It's all there. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
I'm impressed with you, Alan, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
There isn't a week where 3 times a week I shake my head. Alan is on this show. Alan has a show with Bill Hall that he's trying to get off the ground. And he is one of the 3 Meshuggahs on the Peter Golenbach University show.
And the David Nemick show on Thursdays.
And the David Nemick show.
Yeah, I'm going to call him tomorrow. So he's back, from California.
We'll try to hook up with him for your show this week. And so those guys were not involved in any point shaving. This had to do with the kickbacks from the college.
Colleges. Is that it? No, because I never played to be involved in point shaving.
Okay.
So getting payments for
wasn't that the Jack Twyman? Not Jack Twyman.
Jack Molinas.
Molinas, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Molinas. That's a big name in the game.
He was involved.
Yeah, Molinas.
He was indicted. He was indicted by the DA. I remember.
He was blown up by. Took a bullet in the head from one of his gangster buddies. Molinas.
Oh, really? That's how.
Out after playing, I think, 12 games for the Fort Wayne Pistons. He was out of Columbia. They caught him gambling on games, and they kicked him out. It was a major deal at the time because the NBA, after the scandals of '51 broke, they decided that anybody who had the slightest taint not they had hard evidence, would be banned from playing in the NBA.
I can't think of his name. There was a guy who later on coached at Denver.
Doug Moe?
Pardon me?
Moe?
Yes, yeah, Doug Moe.
Yeah, and Larry Brown were also not permitted to go into the NBA. They wound up in the ABA.
That was the success of the ABA. They got some very quality players from that deal.
Yeah, and Connie Hawkins went to the Pittsburgh team in the ABA.
Right.
And then he sued. There's a book describes it a lot better than I could. That book, Foul. They sued the NBA, and he won the suit. So they let him into the NBA, and he
wound up
right away
Phoenix,
became an all-star.
Doug Moe was an Erasmus guy too, as a matter of fact.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Now that I recall, and I had a cousin named Frida, and little Frida was like 5'1", and she remembered. She passed since, but when Doug made it to the pros and got some notoriety, she remembers sitting behind Doug Moe in high school and at Erasmus, saying, "Douglas, you have to move over a little. I can't see the board."
Another one that came out of New York, out of Forest Hills High School, was Ernie Grunfeld, who played with Bernard King at Tennessee.
Bernie and Ernie show.
A year or two after I graduated, he was the same division, Newtown, Forest Hills, a whole bunch of schools. He was Ernie Grunfeld. They went to Maryland, and he played with Bernard at the Ernie and Bernie show.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. I'm sorry, not Maryland. Why do I think Maryland? Did he have a brother that went to Maryland?
Albert. I don't remember where Albert King went.
Okay,
he may have gone to Maryland. That it could be Albert King at Maryland. I think you're right.
Okay, but Tennessee, the Ernie and Bernie show, and Grunfeld was tough ball player. He was a bruiser, Ernie, and again, Bernard King, what a shooter. He broke all kinds of records. He later played out here with the Warriors for a while, and he was kind of a strange cat. I don't know.
Some of those years, he was the only reason to go to the Garden to see the Knicks.
That's right.
Yes.
They were cool. Yeah.
Wow. They seem to not be very good, like I say, for long periods of time. And after that little mini dynasty in late 60s, early 70s, they went downhill again.
Yeah, the only time they've had a good period since then was the Ewing-Oakley years in the mid-'90s. The rest of the time, I've said they've been around for 71 years. They've had 3 really good periods in their history, and the rest of it, most of the time, they've been bad, very bad. It's like the A's.
Right.
Either very good or very bad.
They were just those. Ewing was pretty good, and so was Oakley, of course.
Yeah.
But they came up against the Chicago Bulls.
And
Michael Jordan. It could be worse. You could be rooting for the Brooklyn Nets, you know.
Oh, God.
Well, you came out with your book a month too soon, Hal Bock, because I don't know his name, but he's an executive. You mentioned a guy banned, that word banned. It's a very powerful word.
St. Louis Cardinals?
St. Louis Cardinals this week were fined by baseball $2 million, which I think is a drop in the bucket. $2 million, but they also lost their first 2 draft choices, and it was an executive who was what I call a Ghanaf of our times, because our times, right? It used to be you steal, you bought a gun. Now you buy a computer.
That's right.
And this guy hacked the Houston Astros. And he was a scouting, I don't know what his position was with St. Louis, way up there. Big either scouting director or...
This guy's doing jail time.
Right. Oh, he's in jail. Corporate theft. He may yet end up. It just came out that he was banned for life, and he would hack the emails of scouts and of the Houston organization, and he got in there and found out who they were going to draft and what they thought of people, and it just comes to a sign of our times, more sophisticated stuff, and he's gone from baseball, and that should even things out a little bit between St. Louis and Houston.
Well, they're not in the same league anymore, so...
No, but, I mean, just in terms of what they lost, it sounds like a good, compensating...
And they said on the TV that the draft picks were something like the 27th and 55th. They weren't...
But it's still... Oh, see, I thought it was their first and second draft choices. No, but when they drafted...
They're near the bottom of the, the draft list.
But they don't have those picks. They're doing the players that they don't get.
If there was the Minnesota Twins, then they have a first pick.
Yeah.
And something funny, Daily News is running something, they have a full-page ad today to win NAC tickets. So I told a couple of people, even if you get them for free, it's going to cost you money.
Right.
Are they drawing people? I wonder, are they drawing any people?
I have no idea. But I told somebody put a picture of one of their games on, and I said there's probably more people on the court than in the stands. Actually, this team is 939. I mean, how can anybody?
I wrote a column the other day about them.
Yeah.
And they got into this hole largely because they traded away all their draft picks.
I know, yeah.
To get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce.
Yeah.
And they had them for like 1 year, and now like they're going to finish with the number one draft pick because they have such a terrible record. But that pick is going to the Boston Celtics.
Still? Wow.
Absolutely.
Oh God.
And next year as well.
Yeah.
Their number one pick next year is also going to the Boston Celtics. You know when they'll be good? Forget about it.
I know.
As the Brooklyn people say, forget about it.
That's a New York expression. Forget about it.
They had a game last week where they were playing the Heat in Brooklyn, and they took an 18-point lead into the last quarter and wound up losing by 3.
Yeah. That's hard to do,
Can you imagine Phil Jackson, though, being a genius everywhere he goes, and then he comes back to the Knicks?
Oh, he was very good as a coach. Being a general manager is just
requires a little different skill set.
Right.
Derek Fisher came out in the paper today, ripping into Jackson and things. Yeah, he undermines every coach he has. Because this triangle, which the players don't want to do, and because they don't. The Knicks quite.
The triangle works if you have Michael Jordan and
Michael Jordan. It works.
The triangle works if you have Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant.
Right. Yeah. Or Michael Jordan.
You don't have that here.
Yeah.
Or if you have a great shooter, like a guy like Kerr, for instance. That helped with so much with the Bulls. Another article comes out this week while we're on the subject of basketball that the extensive use of marijuana in the NBA, and I knew it was used. I remember reading an article that Parrish, Boston Celtics center, got busted with a pound of marijuana. And people say, wow, you play basketball and with all that stamina it takes. People have no idea about the effects of marijuana and the incredible medication that it provides in recovery time and relaxation. But I posted this article on the Comfortably Zoned radio network site on Facebook, and Kerr, Nelson, just endorsing marijuana with their players, and Kerr himself saying it's great for recovery time. I've had back problems, and I'm using it. So for me, as a longtime proponent, it's nice to see marijuana that used to be a medicinal additive to people's lives back before prohibition, before marijuana prohibition. It's kind of coming back full circle. There are states that are legalizing it, like Nevada, who were so far against it. You could have a seed and get arrested, a marijuana seed back in the day, and get arrested in Nevada. So
it's sort of like when they banned alcohol, and the only thing that accomplished was synthesizing the power of organized crime.
Right. Anything people, it made it a commodity. People couldn't get it; they wanted it more.
Yeah.
And it's government coming down with laws and what have you, and
supply and demand.
That changed the face of basketball. Tell me how it was then that guys, to get off the hot subject, that Connie Hawkins, Doug Moe, guys that were playing in the ABA, that were allowed back in the NBA, did it come with the merger?
Now, Connie Hawkins came back because of the court case.
Okay.
And the rest of them, Roger Brown,
the rest of them were the
Doug
merger.
Moe and Larry Brown came in through the merger.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Roger Brown was with the Indiana Pacers. I think he played his whole pro career with them, and he's lionized in Indiana.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think Moe and Brown both came through the Denver Nuggets.
Brown has been with how many organizations in his
Brown's
career?
been with every organization there is.
Everybody there is. That's right.
Yeah.
At one time or another.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They say he's one of those genius coaches too.
But he can't keep a job for more than 2 years. Either he gets bored, or the team gets tired of dealing with him.
Yeah.
He won an NCAA in Kansas, and he won an NBA title with the Pistons.
Right. I was going to ask you about the guys that, when the merger took place, the team that made out really well was the St. Louis Hawks. They picked up two guards. They picked up Gene Tormolin.
They were in Atlanta by then. They left.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Zelmo Beatty?
Zelmo Beatty, the center. Yes, and Thornhill was a guard, and
they lost Beatty, and they lost Joe Caldwell to Carolina when they signed Pete Maravich, because the Hawks had a budding. The first year or two in Atlanta, they had a budding contender, and then they signed Maravich because the starting five was all black.
So was Maravich. He just didn't know it.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Pete could play a little bit, couldn't he?
The black player. The story I heard is the black players on the Hawks resented him because he's getting all this money and all this publicity. Because he was white, and of course Caldwell, who was one of the best defensive players in the league, and used to give Frazier fits every time they played each other, wound up jumping to the ABA.
Now, when we talk about that St. Louis team that made out like gangbusters, can't forget Bill Bridges.
Yeah. Well, he came out of the ABL.
Oh, okay. He didn't come out of the ABA?
The ABA didn't start till 1966-67. And the Hawks were only in St. Louis for 2 years with that league before they moved to Atlanta.
Okay.
Bridges.
Incredible.
There were a number of players that came out.
Incredible memories.
There were a number of players that came out of the ABL that wound up on the Hawks.
Okay.
That's where I think the Hawks got players out of the ABL, not the ABA.
Right. Let me digress yet one more time and ask you, Hal, because we're baseball book readers. Alan, you must read 6 books a week, literally.
I can't do that anymore. I used to.
Okay.
Although I don't have that ability anymore.
Okay, but you still read a bunch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To this day, you're a prolific reader. I consider myself a prolific reader. Hal Bock, you're a prolific writer. How is it that you work? How do you work? By making an appointment with yourself to sit down for X number of hours and write? Do you write when the spirit hits you?
No, I'm a very disciplined writer. In fact, I was talking to my wife about this today. I'm a morning guy. I do a lot of my writing early. If I'm at the computer by 10 o'clock in the morning all the time, and that's when I do my writing. And for this book, Banned, I had to write 30 chapters, and I had to do it fast. So involved between the research and the writing, it was a chore. But what I did was I did the research first, and then I sat down and I said to myself, okay, every day I'm going to write a chapter, 1,000 words a day. And I did it because I said to myself, that's what's got to be done. And, I have a wire service background. So speed was always something we relied on at the Associated Press. Speed, of course, and accuracy. And so I write fast. And once I get going, I'm going to be able to meet any deadline that comes along. So the answer to your question is I'm a very disciplined writer, and I sit at the computer early in the day. I'm not good in the afternoon. I kind of peter out in the afternoon, but early in the day, I'm pretty good at doing my work.
Now, say it is the afternoon and you're just going through life. You've done your writing. Is it still in the back of your head? Do you go, whoa, I should have put this in. Let me go back and just...
All the time. All the time. I think about it when I'm sleeping sometimes. Words will come into my head while I'm sleeping, phrases, and sometimes I forget them when I get up, But I have to do all the time.
There's another expression I heard. There's an expression I heard about writers. I don't remember who said it. Writing is no more than putting in commas and taking out commas and changing them around.
Well, that's a little more than that.
No, I know. When I say nothing more,
I prefer the great Red Smith, who was a great columnist, Pulitzer Prize winner here in New York, once said, "It's very easy to write a column. You just stick a needle in your vein and it flows." And that's really true,
all you do is stick a needle in your vein. It's just that simple.
The solution.
That a very profound statement. One other thing, because you were a columnist, a writer, a journalist in that era, and Leonard Coppett is someone I interviewed back in 1995. Tell me about, he wrote what I thought was the best basketball writing going on. I think he wrote a book called 24 Seconds.
Yeah, 24 Seconds.
24 Seconds to Shoot.
Yeah, it's a seminal book of early NBA history. It ends with the Lakers and Knicks in 1970. But really goes very deep into the early years of the NBA. It's terrific.
I was privileged to be a colleague of Coppett's, and he used to. We used to root. You root for yourself in this business a lot. Yeah. You root for the story, but you also root for yourself. And sometimes it can be a very difficult life. Like, for example, if the World Series is in Oakland and in Miami, that's a long trip, So you root for convenience. And Coppett used to say, he had a law, he called it Coppett's Law, whatever's the most inconvenient for the greatest number of people is guaranteed to happen. So we used to kid about that all the time.
He was a very wry, very dry guy.
Yeah, he was.
Miss, when I was a kid growing up, the New York Post was a newspaper that I got to deliver after high school, or after junior high school, and the 1959 era. And I said, Leonard, when I got to interview him in 1995, I said he had just gotten into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he had been in the Basketball Hall of Fame already. And I said, Leonard, when I grew up, we both worked for the Post. You wrote a column, and I delivered the paper. And he looks at me and says, believe me, you had the most important of the two jobs.
That's very good.
Right off the top of his head. I said, no, Leonard, that was not exactly. But he worked with another columnist on the Post at that time, and another Leonard Schechter.
Len Schechter, yeah. Len Schechter was the author of Ball 4 with Jim Bauer.
He posted Ball 4, yeah.
Right,
he wrote a
reputedly did most of the great writing.
He wrote a book called The Jocks.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Which I have. There's another one I've read several times.
I've read that book a few times. He did great story about Casey and Rod Keneal in that book. If
he passed away fairly young. I think it was 47 when he passed.
Wow, Schechter did, yeah.
Yeah, Schechter,
he was. They were terrific because Leonard Coppett was a statistician, basically. He much more so than Leonard Schechter. Leonard Schechter was glib and would write anecdotal stories where Coppett would write stuff and back it up with statistics.
The great Jimmy Cannon was a colleague of both of those men at the Post, and I heard him one time at the press box at Shea Stadium say to Coppett. Coppett came in with a little briefcase, and Cannon said to him, "What do you got in there? A bag of decimal points?" Because Coppett loves statistics.
Leonard Coppett,
very good. A bag of
decimal convention points in San Francisco in 1998. He was there.
Who was? I'm sorry.
Leonard Coppett.
Yes, he came out in the Bay Area in the late 70s.
Yeah,
and
he was at that convention, and he drew crowds.
You know who his next door neighbor was? You'll be interested in this. Do you know who lived next door to Leonard Coppett?
No, I don't.
Willie Mays.
Really?
Willie Mays was his next door neighbor when Coppett passed away.
Wow.
Now, I can't think of the name of the city. It's south of San Francisco. Very, very ritzy area that he lived in. He moved out here, and another one of his statements, I asked him about the difference between living out in New York and California, because he did move out in the 70s, and he said, it's not that New York is bad, it's just that California is so good. And that's the way he thought, and that's the way he lived. A very gregarious, a very open gentleman. He was. I did a thing on Cal State Hayward had a local college had a cable station, and I did a retro callback to New York. I had Charlie Fox and Hank Sauer on this little series of interviews for Bats, as a matter of sponsored by Bats. And Coppett gave me an interview, and Charlie Silvera came out, and this is on TV, so, cable television, so a little different than radio. You can see the expression and the passion, different media, but it was fun, and that was talking about the late Coppett. Now both Schechter and Coppett are gone, and who were the writers that you guys grew up? You're a few years ahead of me, not that many, but just a few. Who did you guys grow up reading in the early morning papers?
Dick Young owned the New York baseball beat.
Yeah, Post was an afternoon paper.
Yes.
Back in those days. The Times, the Tribune, the Mirror, which died in 1963, and the News. I did not read Dick Young.
To the Brooklyn Eagle, that was... Well,
my parents used to get, we were living in Belrose, Queens at those years, and we got a paper called the Long Island Press. Jack Lang.
Yes,
Jack Lang.
Yeah.
That was a terrific newspaper. That, because they were covered. When I grew up...
That died a lot of years ago.
Yeah. They covered the Mets really well. Jack Lang.
Yeah.
Wow. A bunch of great writers in those early Met years. You started covering them in '63, am I right, Hal?
I started covering them. Well, I got to the Associated Press in '63, and so I would be writing about baseball shortly after that. Covering them, really going out to the ballpark, probably late 60s. I covered the World Series in '69 when they won the World Series. So it would have been the late 60s when I started to go to the ballpark regularly.
Okay. Just thought of a great way to end the show. Let's talk about some of the basketball players that were NBA players, that were pro baseball players as well.
Gene Conley.
Gene Conley was one. Dick Groat.
Dick Groat.
Dick Groat, Ron Reed.
Alan, you can elaborate on Dick Groat a little bit.
Dick Groat was a All-American at Duke, and he actually led the nation in scoring one year. He played 26 games for the Pistons in 1952-53. This is before he went into the Army. Played 26 games and averaged just under 12 points a game. And this was before the clock. Then he went into the Army for 2 years, and then when he came out in 1955, Ricky gave him a choice between baseball and basketball. He took baseball because that's where the money was in those days.
Right.
NBA players weren't getting paid very much in those days.
Turned out to be a good solid player for a lot of years.
I interviewed him in 1985 at length, and he told me that had the money been equal, he would have stayed with basketball because that was his first love. And he's been doing the color on University of Pittsburgh basketball broadcasts for quite a while. That may stop because the team has turned very, very horrible this year.
All right, let me bring up another name, Chuck Connors, who was the rifleman.
The rifleman.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to know him at all, Hal?
Not really. He was the NBA.
No, I mean, I saw him play a little bit, but no, I never got to know him, no.
Okay. Didn't interview him or anything?
No. Okay,
here's a trivia question for Alan. There was a Brooklyn Dodger call-up in the 1951
Bill Sharman.
Boy.
He's right.
He's right, yep.
He's right. I know he is.
He was thrown out of the game without ever participating in one because the bench was cleared.
Really?
Yeah.
He never played a big league game, but he was a minor league outfielder for a lot of years.
It's a AAA with the St. Paul Saints, who was Dodger Farm Association. He was on the bench. They had a big to do with Braves in that game where Campanella got thrown out for arguing a call too vehemently, and the umpire Frank Dascoli cleared the bench, and Sharma was on the bench. He'd been a call-up, but he never got into a game.
Very, very good, Alan.
Thank you.
You amaze me. We glossed over Gene Conley. Gene Conley was Bill Russell's backup for a lot of years with the Celtics. Pretty good ball player. He went to Israel with Thompson. He was going to go.
He tried to go.
got out of a bus one day, and were on their way to Israel. Never did make it, but
no, let's go to this gate instead of that one.
Yeah.
Right.
They asked Pumpsy. I read it somewhere. They asked Pumpsy Green why he didn't actually go. He said, "I wasn't Jewish." He said, "I'm not Jewish."
As if Conley was.
Yeah. But
they were equally Goyesha, which is okay by me. Pumpsy Green was the last. The Boston Red Sox were the last team to
integrate,
have a black player. It was 12 years after Jackie Robinson, and every time my blood curls every time I mention this. But it took till 1959 for the Red Sox to decide that it wouldn't hurt them too much if they had a black player.
Yeah, there was a very iconoclastic book that came out in the 70s by two guys named Harris and Boyd, and they did baseball cards. It's called The Great Trading and Flipping Card Baseball Book.
That book changed my life.
A lot of pictures of old cards, and the comment they made of Pumpsy Green says, they said that he immediately achieved equality with the rest of the Red Sox lineup.
Right.
They weren't very good in those days,
No, they weren't. That book had the start of that book, the preface was written by a fellow named Cy Berger.
Yeah, he's the Tops guy,
invented Tops.
Yeah.
And I got that book as a present in 1973. In 1979, maybe 80, it took that long for me because Cy Berger talked about how in those days, back in the day, they had professional scouts going to the minors and determining who they thought was the best prospects. Tops would sign them. They were
for peanuts.
For nothing, still did, and obligate them and obligate Tops to pay them big bucks when they weren't paying big bucks in those days till the unions came along, and and Maury Wills wasn't signed. He was dished by Tops, and when it turned out he played a lot of years in the minors, finally makes it to the majors. I can't think of the coach that an old Dodger was his coach. That turned him into a switch hitter in the minors. Made the majors, didn't sign with Tops for a long time.
Yeah,
so the gist of it was
his first Tops card was as a Pirate. 1967.
Oh, really? You never had a
No, the only time he had his Dodger card Tops is after he went back there.
Okay, that's very interesting. Anyway, the gist of it was that Tops now just makes it a practice to sign everybody in the minors to contracts.
Oh, yeah.
And this way they don't dish anybody. Well, that's stuck in the back of my head. I'm not a baseball scout. I'm thinking I was an insurance salesman. But all the other qualities, being a people person, being a baseball fanatic and all that, I could do that job, I thought to myself. And I wrote Cy Berger a letter, and I said just exactly what I laid it out. I have no, understand that I have no scouting abilities, but here are my other qualities. And he wrote back. He says, I'll call you sometime. I'll give you a call. And a year or so, 2 years later, he calls me. He says, would you like to be the West Coast representative of Tops? I did the Northwestern League, the California League.
Cool.
From the 80s, the mid-80s to the mid-90s. From 82 to 95. I said, 13 years they would send me on the road every summer to go to the minor leagues. I'd cover 2 teams sometimes in one day, and map out a little schedule for myself, and they paid me a per diem, and they paid me a salary to do it at the end of, not a salary, but as an independent contractor. And it was like a fantasy camp for years. And
wow.
But it was the result of that book. It was an oddly shaped book. It wasn't, right?
Yeah.
And it had a blue cover, and it literally changed my life. Wonderful.
It's a great story.
Yeah, great memories, guys. I'm thrilled that this is going as well as it is, and that we could all be little boys again, thinking about the days when we rooted. And one question, Hal Bock, you mentioned Marty Glickman. I'd like to find out as much as I can over a lifetime about Marty. He would do high school basketball. You'd see him.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Over there. Did you have any personal interactions with him? Did you know him well?
I mean, I interviewed him a couple of times about the Berlin Olympics.
Right.
I wouldn't call us pals, but I mean, I talked to him a few times, sure.
Okay, good. That he's an inspiration. You can't be a Jewish kid and growing up and not think of him. And that Olympics when he and Stoller, was it the other runner? Sam Stoller were not permitted to run, and Glickman took his life in a positive direction and used himself as an example of stuff.
I really felt sorry for him when they had to do those radio broadcasts of the Giants games, after the football Giants, after they fell apart after 1963. He had to really announce some really, really bad football teams.
He did a book with Stan Isaacs called, I think, The Fastest Kid on the Block or something like that, about his life.
Yeah,
I will
have that
that
somewhere, yeah.
Thank you. I would look for that. And that's how we'll end it, by just a great show. I'm just thinking that I'm looking forward to next week already. And
hey, Hal, I just want to let you know, just as soon as that book comes out, I'm going to get it.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I will too. And so you could hope. What is your deadline? That's the question I wanted to ask you. Is it self-imposed? You want it to come out by opening day?
What happened was that I came up with this idea when the Mets relief pitcher Mejias was suspended, and I shopped it around, and it was purchased by my old employer, the Associated Press, and they said, "Well, let's shoot for a World Series. Let's shoot for having it ready by the World Series, but you'll have to do the book by mid-July." I said, "I can do that because I can write fast and I can research," and I did. I had the manuscript was done by the middle of July, but then they had production issues and one thing led to another, and they finally just decided to put it off until opening day of this season. So it's going to be before opening day. It's going to be February 22nd. But that book has been in the works for over a year.
Okay. Wow, you could get 2 in 2 years. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it's true. I don't think I'm doing any more, though. My wife is after me to not do that again.
Well, must be terribly time-consuming.
Like they say,
labor of love. You tell her it's a labor of love, and
it's a fun way to spend my time. It keeps me off the streets.
Yeah,
good. I hope it does. I hope it's a bestseller.
Thank you.
That's the best I can wish for. But either way, you had the gratification of putting your words down, and
yes, and that's very important to a writer. Believe me.
Hal, do you keep track? How many books have you written?
Banned, I believe, is my 14th book. But I had a long time that I didn't write any because I was busy being a columnist at the AP, and you didn't have the leisure time that you get in retirement. So 3 of those books have come during my retirement.
Right. Retirement with quotes.
Yes, that's right.
Right. But, if I think that if one doesn't have anything to fill their mind up in retirement, it's a downhill slope.
Yeah, that's why I read and do all this stuff, because I'm on Facebook all the time. And because I have to. Because if I let if I start to slip mentally, that scares me more than slipping physically.
I don't think you have anything to worry about, Alan. You impressed the hell out of me tonight.
Thank you.
Yes. You both impressed the hell out of me. Not just this week, but every week in every interaction we have. Thank you, gentlemen. Again, welcome. You're one of the newest members of Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Hal Bock, and we're privileged to have you. And
thank you.
And Alan, again, I will say it on the air. You're all reliable around here. Tommy Heinrich.
Thank you very much, Ralph.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
Bye, gentlemen. We'll talk next week, same time, same bat.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's okay.
Okay.
You remember that too, huh?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So from Bruce Wayne, signing out. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Everybody out there, keep on keeping on. We'll be back next week, Hoops from Nedick's, and enjoying it immensely, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Adios, everybody.
Good night.